Electronic Arts. They start off, they have Andrea Renee from What's Good Games and Kinda Funny, which is nice.
That was the saving grace, I would say, of that whole thing.
Yeah. It was unfortunate that she had to be a part of some of the cringe, but none of it really her fault.
Yeah. And I don't think it hurt her credibility at the end of the day by any means, but.
Oh no! Anybody that follows her knows that.
Yeah. Okay. It's EA.
It's EA. You can't really turn them down.
Sadly.
Yeah.
It's in the game.
So they start off with some Battlefield, more destructible environments, battle royale mode, etc., etc. More onto Battlefield. What is this, 5?
Yeah.
Yes.
So Battlefield 1 to Battlefield 5, the prequels to Battlefield 1942 by
1941.
That's
almost 2000.
Yeah,
yes.
I have no idea. Obviously, this is not my wheelhouse. Battlefield.
Yeah.
Are anyone excited about that?
I'm excited for it. Yeah, the destructive environments, everything like that. The battle royale. Everybody's just having battle royale because it's the trendy thing right now. Least excited about that, but the actual Battlefield 5, Battlefield 1's been awesome playing with you guys. As long as there's flying in it, I'm good.
Yeah, they're making a lot of changes to it, right? So the biggest thing is, or at least what I like, is just how destructive it's going to be. So, Battlefield 1 is already a beautiful game, right? So adding that destructibility, that type of stuff to it, I think it's going to be really good. It kind of reminds me back to Bad Company 2 and those type of games where the whole thing was just the map would just be completely destructed or done at the end of the day. So
I think what's interesting is that when we had the original announcement for the game, a couple of weeks ago, basically, or 3 weeks ago before E3, was that we had the whole cringe sort of introduction to the game with Trevor Noah, which was really kind of put the game at a really bad standing, kind of in the views of a lot of people, because it was just super cringe. And it just didn't go enough in depth about the game. We did get the really nice announcement, obviously, about the fact that there's no season pass, no premium pass for this game, which is thank God, that took
which shouldn't draw an applause, but it does.
Sadly,
in
this day and age, it does. Sadly, in this day and age, it does. And
but it's a good announcement.
And confirmation that there is no loot boxes too. That was another big thing. It's hey, we recognize the mess up we had with Battlefront, and we're very cautious of that. And speaking, I think from that actually kind of gets me to a really interesting point about the whole overall EA conference in general, is that we went from that, right, which was wow, we're about to jump into hopefully one of the better E3 presentations coming from EA in probably a number of years, because it was just affirming to audiences that we're listening to the community, right? We're focusing on it. But sadly, what I saw in just over the course of the show is that it's just this lack of they're not really connecting to what people are really saying, what gamers are actually asking for.
Yeah.
So it's just it felt a little tone deaf to me. I don't know what you guys felt overall.
Yeah, but it's just more reactionary. It's okay, we learned from loot boxes, we shouldn't do that. We're not going to put them in there. We're not going to do the season pass, but I guarantee you there's going to be something that's going to make them a lot of money, and really that's what they're there for. They're all businesses. That's what they're there for. But EA especially is more of, how can we milk it out of our players?
Right. I think they should have been more clear instead of just saying hey, we learned. They should have said sorry. And
we messed up.
Acknowledge the mess up more.
And we kind of had
saying don't worry, this one doesn't have loot boxes, and so they made it a celebration instead of hey guys, we fucked up.
Yeah. And I will say the creative director from Battlefront 2, when he came out, to talk about sort of the next season for that game, he basically was very much apologetic. He basically recognized very forwardly, in front of people. Actually, the guy looked I felt bad for him because he looked like he was falling apart. Yeah. I was dude, that's not beard. His hair was out of control. And I was just, clearly, right? Because you're in a really bad situation PR-wise, and you have to come out in front of audiences and acknowledge that there was a massive screw up. I would have, to your point though, I would have much rather had that come out from someone like Andrew Wilson, coming to apologize about their mishaps, because he kind of played around it with some of his, CEO talk, but
well, is E3 even the right platform for that, right? It's supposed to be announcements and what's coming and getting excited about the company. I think it would have been better if there was a pre-event apology type deal,
like a formal
and then
open letter from
focus
EA,
on the positive
Yeah.
during the conference.
And throughout the whole controversy with Battlefront, they did talk about that stuff, and they kept putting out not really a press release, that's not the word I'm looking for, but just trying to communicate as much as possible.
Yeah.
But the reason why I say E3 should be the platform is because they brought it up by saying, by making it a big deal that their next game doesn't have loot boxes and isn't going to be like that other game. You know? So the fact that they brought it up, they should have also just acknowledged the
I agree.
the screw up
And they also
a little
echoed
bit.
that. They also echoed that again at the end of the conference when they were talking about the whole sort of Anthem presentation, which I'm sure we'll talk a bit more in depth about. But it was the same conversation, hey, we want to confirm to you that this game does not contain loot boxes.
Yeah.
And it was one of the Twitter questions that actually came up from the community on stage, which I thought was kind of.
I just want to know what it doesn't include. It doesn't include loot boxes, but it's going to include something.
It'll be cosmetics.
Visuals.
That
It's
seems
just cosmetic.
that seems to be the
Good.
most acceptable form of
Oh yeah, look at Fortnite. They made
microtransactions.
1.5 billion off of just cosmetic transactions.
And Overwatch. Overwatch is huge
Yeah.
for cosmetics and just things that don't really affect gameplay.
Exactly.
How much?
$0.
$0. Wow.
I have not spent a dime.
That's
How much did you
impressive.
spend?
That's impressive. It's none of your business.
Don't worry about
Don't
I'm a
ask me what I
professional
spent on
Fortnite designer.
Fire
No, design costumes. I'm worth
What-
1.5 billion.
One interesting thing I wanted to mention though about Battlefield before we move on is that they went with the EA Play event the week before, or I believe it was the week before, right? The EA Play event, or was it a couple of weeks? But basically, they had all the streamers and the YouTubers that are part of the EA Play program, right? Kind of make videos about the game, and I actually felt it was weird because the streamers and the content creators did a better job of covering the game than they actually did. So while I appreciate that we finally got an actual gameplay trailer at E3 of Battlefield, it was still felt a little just because we saw more coverage from YouTubers like Jack Frags, like Westy, that actually cover the game on a regular basis, and I just thought that was an interesting turn of events this year. Rather than the message coming directly from them, they decided to pass it on to all the streamers and the content creators to pass it on to the community. So
honestly, I'd rather hear it from the people playing the game than
I agree. Yeah,
there's gonna be maybe some bias or whatever to it, but it's
I think
not gonna be like somebody on stage getting paid lots of money to talk and hype up a game.
Well, that's true. I think they needed to do that though, because when that trailer came out and then people were reacting differently to it being not an authentic World War II game, they relied on their fan base and the people that have constantly put out Battlefield videos to kind of leverage that back,
Yeah.
The whole woman on the cover though is ridiculous.
I don't think anybody
I don't understand.
The outcry about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Let me clarify.
I was worried for a second. I was like, I don't know where this is going. I don't feel safe.
Yes.
The backlash is
Yes.
what's
The backlash
ridiculous.
is ridiculous.
Okay,
on that.
cool.
Absurdity to me.